One out there in Waitrell.
You good, you good.
Yes. Yeah, I'm Kurt Catty, Inspector of Works, and we just here to share some goodies about water this morning, you know. So just cue in and listen, you know.
Good.
Good morning, I'm Sean Greenaway, Inspector of Quality at the St. Kitts Water Department. And like my colleague said, we're here to share information to the general public. And not only that, we welcome your calls because with you engaging us, it'll help us to be more effective at what we do on a daily basis.
And that's a great way to start this week's conversation because what you do on a daily basis is definitely a lot. So, Kurt, I want to start with you because I know that generally when I go through the feed on the Water Services Department's Facebook page, that's one of the other ways that the public generally interacts with us. And there are lots of comments, there are lots of things that are going on. Sometimes they don't seem to understand the nature of, let's say, service interruptions or things like that. And because you are on the ground, you can somewhat explain to us exactly what was going on. For instance, let's start with one of the most recent interruptions that we had concerning the Frigate Bay Bird Rock area and how that came to be and how it was rectified, etc.
Okay, that Frigate Bay Bird Rock interruption, we had a few breakage. One major break is like a 10-inch line. So we go out to do the repairs. At that time, we shut the line down before we put that notice out because it's an emergency. It's not something planned or anything like that. So water just gushing out. The first thing we do is stop that leak. That's the first thing, stop that leak, and then I will contact my good friend Jamie to put that notice out on the page so everybody could see it. Usually if there's a school, hotels and what's not in the area, we notify them there first. We don't wait for them to see it on the page actually. We'll reach out and notify them. But during that course of the day, we had some issues in the Bastia Valley also. You know, where the pumps pump that water straight to the tank. So you had an electricity problem. Mm-hmm. So the pump, we had outages from the pump. So because of that, you had really low levels. So just causing that from the electricity outages, that's what pumped the water up to the tank to fill it. It was lower than normal. So you have to wait and give it time for it to build back up at that same time. Mm-hmm. So that what really caused that outages for that time. Mm-hmm.
And there were quite a few areas affected, by the way. So the people who in those areas would generally know what happened there. But for the public, it was Southeast Peninsula, I think, really was affected because you and I had that discussion about how Southeast Peninsula gets fed. So
right. Well, for the Southeast Peninsula, we use the same pumps from in the Bastia Valley to send the water over to the Southeast Peninsula. But because of the electrical problem that we had with the same pumps, we can't send those pumps over to the Southeast Peninsula. And at the same day, we had a breakage over there like the day before also. So it was just multitasking between all of those leaks at the same time, you know, with the crew that we have. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And your crew definitely works very, very hard. I think at this point I do want to commend the public because we generally ask them when we send those notices out to be patient, to be cooperative, and they generally were. So thank you for understanding. Thank you for explaining that issue because I don't think a lot of times people understand that it's not just a localized outage. There are so many things that determine whether there is an outage and how you go about rectifying it with the limited crew that you have.
Yeah.
All right, so Mr. Greenaway, I'm tentative to call your name because I generally call you by your first name, but Mr. Greenaway here. Let's talk a little bit about quality, water quality, which is something that you do as well. I remember roughly about maybe 2 months ago, the time rolls around so quickly, when we had that discussion about, let's say, the Bastia Aquifer and how those low levels would affect the water quality if you continue to tap into that source. I'm curious to know what you can tell us, again, just remind us about that issue there and also the nature of your work in general. What is going on with respect to quality that the public ought to know to feel secure with the water supply coming through their taps?
Well, first thing, like in terms of the quality and the Bastia Aquifer, some folks have to probably understand how the water cycle works. And in the Bastia Aquifer, the fresh water actually sits on top of lens of salt water. So with continuous pumping and no rains, we'll be just pulling the fresh water off the salt water and the levels would drop. So if we do not have enough rain, or what we call recharge to the aquifer, we just pumping fresh water, no recharge. No more fresh water coming in. So eventually we would start to get salt water intrusion. And if you start getting salt water intrusion into the wells, you have a big problem. So sometimes even with some of these outages, it might not be a fault of the department. When we do our testing and we realize these levels become elevated, we definitely have to make a call whether we're going to continue pumping or we're going to shut down the well, give it a few days to rest or some time to rest, try divert water from other places. But you have to bear in mind, even though we try to divert water from other places, they're facing the same problem of low levels also. So sometimes it's like a juggling act. Are we going to divert water? Are we going to keep pumping? Or we just have to do our best, advise the public, and let the wells rest for a few days so they could recharge, have the fresh water rise back in the well so we could continue pumping.
So you make those calls on a daily basis. You have to know, of course, what the standards are that you're trying to maintain, and that's very important. So it's good to have you knowledgeable folks on the ground making those calls.
And not only that, we are guided by WHO standard, World Health Organization standards. The health department as well, they play a critical role in terms of monitoring our water system for us. So they're like our police as well. When the health department, they go around and they test the standpipes, they test the tanks, the wells, and they find things that are alarming to them, they would notify us, and we would have to make the same judgment call. Sometimes you can't even wait a split second, you just have to shut down. Public is out of water, but there's not much we could do.
Definitely so.
Know? But at the same time, we still have to ask the public to be understanding, and if they could even help us by even trying to get some kind of storage in the meanwhile, because honestly it's going to be a while before we get things really back to normal. And I know no one wants to get up in the morning and there's no water, but you could help the situation when there's water. If you could fill a few tanks or containers just for that time, because sometimes the outages are emergency, it's not planned, so we just ask the public, they themselves could help until we get things back to normal.
Definitely so. And I smiled when you said normal, because I thought, but there is a whole new normal that has been operating for the last few years, and I think that all of us should do exactly what you say and anticipate those outages, but also, collect as best as we can, because you don't know how long they're going to last. You don't know when they're even going to happen. I get the call from Kurt sometimes just after he gets up, maybe around 5 o'clock or so, and those sorts of things, right? So that's important to do as well. One of the things that comes to mind right now, as I have you and both of you here, that is we talked about the silting in the Old Road area, and I mentioned, it came back to my mind rather, because one of the things that you talked about was diverting water sources. Mm-hmm. And so I was curious to know, with the heavy rains that we're having, is there any anticipation of further silting? Have there been any, actions taken to mitigate the issues in the Wingfield area in relation to that, or are we just waiting until they become easier to deal with? What's going on with respect
in terms of the Wingfield area, one of the things, we have guys who actually go to the intakes on a daily basis. So they themselves, they make the judgment call. They go up and they don't have to wait on the manager or one of the technical staff to make certain decision. They go up and they realize the water is extremely muddy or dirty, as we might say. They would make the call throughout the water, because the time they take to call maybe the manager or somebody to make that decision, water already reached Bastia, contaminated, all the lines come up. So they would go up sometimes, throw off the water, and then they would notify us. So sometimes, like I said, it's all about a judgment call. It's not something that you call the public and wait for their blessing to turn off the water. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do, So, like I said, most of it is just something technical. I mean, nobody, like I said, wants the water to go, but sometimes it's way beyond us. Yeah. And in terms of the silting in Old Road, because of where the silting was located, it was very difficult to get. It is very difficult to get heavy equipment to go up and clear the area. Even if you get manpower, it's probably all now next year we're still trying to move the silt. You know, so right now, even with the rains, we glad sometimes we have a little rain. It kind of wash away the silt. And honestly, for a while now, we haven't been that bad. So you could see it's actually clearing up. You know, so that aspect of it might take a little longer still before it's really all the silt has been washed away.
Basically, with that, what you just speak about is what you call a landslide. It's a landslide. The water coming from way up, high up, where, as I said, no machine could go there and work. You probably have to have a helicopter and do them kind of stuff and so. So because it's a landslide, you have to let it nature take its course, and as it wash accordingly, it will get clearer and clearer, because when it started, it's like 5 minutes, if you just have a little rain, the water is muddy, brown. But usually over a period of time now, with that water running there all the time, you wash with all that stuff and it just come clearer and clearer and clearer over a period of time. You know, and one main thing when it comes to rainfall, because a lot of people out there in the public, you know, they see us have some heavy rains today. And because they say the heavy rain, up to yesterday somebody called me and they say, man, we're getting so much rains and them kind of things. But, you know, usually for the pumping the underground water that we pump from the wells, you know, usually when that rain fall, it take maybe probably about a month or so before we could get access to that water, because you have to penetrate down to that well. It's not like the rainfall come today and you could use the water tomorrow like that. It's not like that. You know, it take a very long time, probably like a month or so.
Not only that, with a lot of rain too, you remember the soil like have pores. So the soil becomes saturated. So no care how much rain comes, it just runs off. So you might have a lot of rain and 90% of the water actually goes down to the sea. Only maybe a 2% might reach down to the aquifer. So it might rain for months. But because the soil is saturated, or in certain areas it might be muddy, if it's sandy soil, you have a lot of percolation where the water actually goes down to the aquifer. But if the area is clay, saturated, the water just runs out. So the water itself actually blocks the pores. You know?
Interesting.
So it's like for instance, you have a sponge. Though you could put it in the sea, it only could suck up a certain amount of water. So that might be the best example I could give. You know, you go down the bay, you want to fill a drum with a sponge, takes you all day. Because the sponge could only hold a certain amount, but all the water is there. So that is similar to what happens from the soil.
So when it's raining, we prefer, if the rain come at a certain type, like, you know, not heavy rain. If you just continuously a nice small showers, that's the better type of it. You know, because you won't get that waterlog. You won't get that waterlog. So the water, right? So you will just penetrate easier like that.
Yeah, and even if we catch the water, all the water that rains, it's just like anything else. Water has a shelf life. So if you have the water in your pool and you don't treat it and you leave it there, what becomes of it? Mosquitoes, it becomes smelly, it becomes stagnant. You know, so all these factors in the same way. Just like if we catch water in the tanks after certain times, we have to make sure the water get out. Otherwise we can't give the public, because just like when you buy the goods in the supermarket, it has a shelf life to it. You know, so all these are some of the factors maybe the general public are not aware of. You know, some persons might know, but a lot of times we just try to be a little technical, you know. But at the end of the day, we still like the public to call and engage us, you know, keep us on our toes, and we try to respond as quickly as we could. Sometimes we might be lagging because of, you know, manpower, guys are already diverted to other places, but we like the public to still continue call, engage us. You know, if you see a little leak, no leak is too small, because probably by the time we dig down there, it might be a major leak. It's just that it hasn't reached the surface as well. You know, so just continue calling us, continue engaging us, and we'll try our best to respond. I know we get a lot of leaks, but still, we have to do what we have to do.
I think your shoulders are broad. You're used to it. Definitely so.
Check your phone for the number.
Check my phone for the number.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was just going to ask you to come in. All right. So, of course, this is an interactive show. I was just given a prompt to check my phone for the number to have you call, so I will do that right now. The number to call is 662 662-8674, 662-8674, if you want to engage these gentlemen, if you want to commend the Water Services Department for the service that it continues to provide, even in challenging circumstances, because there have been challenging circumstances, or if you have an issue, there was a leak, there was a pipe somewhere that you need the team to know about to address, now is your opportunity. Please, the number to call, 662-8674. Now, as we're on that topic of engaging the public, we do have a call. Good day, caller, you are live.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's good to see that you all have a PRO. What do you call it? I can't remember, not now. But somebody there said that they couldn't reach where you had a landslide at the Wingfield River, you said? Was it at the Wingfield River?
Yes.
Well, okay. I know you all have access to heavy equipment, but you all need a track equipment. But what I mean by that, heavy equipment, something like a bulldozer, to go when you got those areas to try to access. Don't answer me. Since I know myself, when you had heavy rainfall in the Wingfield River area, from since they built a pipeline to go to top, they had to shut off the water, run away all the water. I personally got an idea what could be done here. But I want to know if you all can come up with something to filter the water before it come all the way up to Bastia and save the amount of water that usually be driven off. Well, I personally know that they have certain kind of sand where water systems run through them. But the way these things have been made up, you got to make room for cleaning and so forth. But I only say that to tell you that people know. But it looks as if you all ain't doing anything. I am personally glad that the desalination plant coming because you are but you were so dead around it. Until recently, he started to talk about it. U.S. Virgin Islands, they ain't got no river, and they don't got dirty water like us when you got down poor. And they have desalination plant and that's going on for a long time. I'm going to leave that there for now. Another time I engage you all. Have a good day.
Thank you. Okay, well, I could comment on the part in terms of being inspector of quality. He mentioned about adding filters or find ways we could treat the water. Actually, we have been engaging consultants and other persons, not that I want to speak out of term, but we have been engaging and trying to find ways that we don't actually have to shut off the system, but actually treat that water before it comes to Basti, before it goes to anywhere. So that's one of the things we actually been working on. You know, I don't know when we would actually have everything in order, but we actually are working on such things to get that water treated.
Well, that's good that you said that. I'm glad for the call as well. We are accepting all the calls at 662-8674, but to your response, it's important that the public knows that even when they don't see things happening, you're actually working, because there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, so I'm glad that you were able to get that point out. We touched on desalination a little bit, and I suppose that since you are internal to the department, we do have another caller. Awesome. Good day, caller. You're alive.
I have to call back for this one because this is so important. With the coming of desalinated water, and you are setting up your own lab to check the standard on a regular basis, and also would you all be sending samples off to United Nations about it so that we know where we are? That's it.
Well, yes, we are presently in the process of setting up our own internal lab at the department. We are still waiting for certain equipments to be procured. And not only that, we have the Bureau of Standards that would actually, when we need testing done time to time, they do testing. Depends on the type of testing. We do use overseas laboratories. For instance, there's a regional body, CAFA. They provide support in that in that aspect to all the Caribbean islands. Mm-hmm. So it's not just only to St. Kitts. So yes, we have been seeking outside help, and at the same time trying to have our own laboratories set up internally so we could do a first-hand check, and then not only that, we have somebody to verify what we find is actually correct.
All right, there's another caller.
And before he go, as he said about testing the water, when we put any new system on scheme, right? Whether it's a pump, whether we didn't use haven't reached to the desal as yet. But even if it's a pump, we must send that test overseas before we could use that to reach this standard. We must do that.
Well, yes.
Good day, caller. You're the final call for today.
Can you turn on the volume on your radio, please? Go ahead.
Yes, GQ. Yeah, and the good people at the water department. We the poor people been looking at the water table in East Bastille. The abuse amongst nationals and some immigrants. And I and the court of conscience, the circus bench, want to know what the interest the water department paying in over there. Because for what I see over there shouldn't be happening. Because it couldn't happen with Mr. Bradshaw. So something is wrong. And another problem we discuss, we want to know why these young fellas who work at the water department don't lay with the older guys who are alive. So you can tell me if Alex from Woolwood was around, nobody would ask him a question about the West. Because he was very knowledgeable about the water. And we got problem, you know. We have problem and we don't correct it. We have to correct it. I want to ask the department a question before I go. If I happen to over in that area and see the abuse and me take it on me and someone who pick up and see trying asbestos over there, you all will come in and support me? Because this is how we don't argue about it, you know. Because 4 o'clock time the department workers gone. They don't care. They don't even they drive around on the seat, they just let go. But it's damaging to the country. We cannot let people could just change damage on the water table. Have a good day, you GQ. See you go live with them is a different thing.
All right, so thank you very much to all of our callers. Apparently, we are out of time for today, but I do want to thank you for listening, of course, to this edition of The Waterline. I want to thank my guests for coming here today. They beat me to it, actually, but I want to thank them for being here and sharing the knowledge that they have. Always a pleasure. Until next time, I'm Jamie Morris saying goodbye.
Water is life, 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 life. Water is life, 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 life. Do just one thing,
Every drop come. Make sure you check for leaks around your house every day. Every drop come. When brushing your teeth, don't let the water run away. Come steady water, the water. Preserve